Do you want to see if this is actually working?
Yeah, I'm on the YouTube right now, the page.
Okay. See if this is actually working.
Yeah, it's on. It's on a delay. But yeah, I'm on the YouTube right now. Need that. Yeah, so it looks good.
Wonder if I should close. We'll rock with it. Ready to rock and roll when you are.
Ready? All right. Well, to everyone that will be watching this in the future, my name is Braden Markovich. I'm joined here by Donovan Lindsay, the founder and chief visionary officer of the College Knowledge Foundation. Donovan brings an immense amount of experience from college admissions, and he's eager to share this information. When he started his company College Knowledge Foundation. Thank you for being here today, Donovan. I'm excited to get into a little bit about financial aid and how students can approach it.
Likewise, thanks for hosting.
Yep. My first question is more of a general question. What are the different types of financial aid that are available to high school students as they, apply to college and are planning on how to afford college?
Sure. So there's four main types. Um, One of the types, probably the most common, is going to be scholarships. That's probably what most students have heard about. So scholarships, that's money that you're going to use to pay for school. Scholarships can be in the form of, well, scholarships are basically they're going to be money that you're going to get from a variety of different places. A lot of people will think that you're going to get a scholarship from the school that you're going to be applying to, but most scholarships actually that you can obtain are going to be external. They're going to be from outside the school. So one of the best things to do for a student to be considered for financial aid is to submit the FAFSA form. So the FAFSA form is a free application for federal student aid that will enter you into a larger pot for a lot of money that you can get from the federal government. But also, a lot of schools will utilize that information to see what types of and how much financial aid that they can give you in the form of scholarships. So you can get scholarships from the federal government. You can get scholarships from the state government. There could be state aid that you can also get. So the FAFSA is a federal form that you can submit if you go to studentaid.gov. And then each state also has something similar to the FAFSA, where it would take your household information and consider you for what funding you may have or you may be able to get from this state. Scholarships can also be obtained from different universities. A lot of the time, scholarships can range from, literally like $1 to $1 million. I mean, there's no really a limit on a scholarship. It depends on how much the school is willing to give you. It depends on how much someone donating or sponsoring you is willing to give you. So basically, scholarships it's going to be money that you can utilize to go to school and primarily going to be used first for academics. So that's where the basically your tuition bill. So the tuition, the room and board, potentially the additional fees that universities may charge, and scholarships also may be contingent on you maintaining a certain grade point average. There could be a lot of contingencies on a scholarship. For me, for instance, I was required to maintain a specific grade point average going from my first year into my second year, I believe. And I didn't realize that. So when I saw my bill wasn't covered by like $1,000, I was like, wait, what's going on? And I saw that, the scholarship was contingent on X. So it's important when you look at scholarships that you look at how do you maintain it if you're able to maintain it year over year. Another form of financial aid, my favorite form, is going to be a grant. So a grant similar to a scholarship, it's money that you're getting, but there's usually going to be less restrictions on a grant. So a grant, much like a scholarship, you can pay for school, but you're getting it from a variety of different places. Likewise, you can get it from the federal government again, like a scholarship. You can get a grant from the state. You can get it from the school that you're going to, but also from different and varied organizations that may just be offering grants to students. Usually, you're not going to see as much of a contingency on a grant where you're going to see, you get this money to help you go to school. And I know people like for me, for instance, I received a grant and the two or a month and a half, I would say after I received the grant, I remember my laptop broke. So I was on Dell's website and ordered me a new laptop. And just because I had that grant. So it doesn't really just have to be used for the your tuition bill or the bill that you're getting from the school. Really, you're going to be able to use it for anything to kind of get you through, that college journey. So those are probably my two favorite types of financial aid. Another type of financial aid is called federal work study. So federal work study is something that the federal government has where a student is able to apply and select on the FAFSA form that they would like to be considered for federal work study. They usually will find out, I would say, right before or once they start their first year, first semester in college, whether they're eligible for federal work study or not. And what federal work study is they will give you a certain amount of money that you're able to work towards that the federal government will pay for you working on campus for a specific job. So me, for instance, as a student, when I went to Penn State, I worked as an undergraduate student in the admissions office. So let's say I was making $10 an hour and I had federal work study. So what federal work study does is they pay for about 75% of your wage. So an office at the university, they will post on their university careers page or jobs page that they have student positions open. Usually you'll see if it's a federal work study position or not. If it's not, that department is going to be paying you 100% of your wage. So in this instance, the admissions office could have been paying me, the $10 out of their own pocket. But the federal government, if I applied for a work study job, they would be paying me 25% of that. So the federal government would pay $7.50, and then the office that you're working for would pay you then the other $2.50. So just to keep the numbers round, because I'm not good at math, I chose $10, but basically it's just the 75% that they're going to be paying you. So to be eligible for that, though, you do have to make sure on the FAFSA form that you are selecting that you would like to be considered for federal work study. If you don't, then you're just not. You can always get a campus job and make some money other ways. But in a nutshell, federal work study, you're able to work to a specific cap. So let's say now that cap for federal work study is $2,000. Once you work to that $2,000 for the year or the semester, then you're done. That department can then decide if they would like to pay you out of their own budget for the 100% of your wage, your hourly rate wage, or at that time they can basically decide, there's no more money in the budget, you can come back next semester or that following year. And then last is loans. So students can take out loans to pay for college. So basically, loan is you borrowing money from either the government or some type of financial institution, bank, credit union, something like that. And then or private organization, and then you have to pay back that money based on the terms and conditions that's going to be set by that specific that's the wherever you borrowed it from. And then I would just say always just pay attention to how much the interest is. So when it comes to the interest on a loan, basically, what's the percentage that they are adding to the loan as you pay it back. So of course, the closer to zero the percentages, the better. The higher it is, um, the worse. But I would definitely say do your research, talk with people who've maybe taken out loans, what places that they've done it from, even talk to different financial aid offices that the students may be applying to colleges from. They could potentially let you know what may be some, good places to get a loan from. But yeah, those are
Okay.
pretty much going to be the four types of financial aid sources that a student can get. But, there's different nuances and, different things within them.
Okay. So I think I'll know your answer to this, but if you sort of had to rank these four different sources of financial aid in terms of, in what like the students should really be gunning for the most, how
Sure.
would you rank them?
Grants. Grants is free money. never have to pay it back. I would say scholarships, for instance, scholarships would be number two on my list, but a scholarship is usually going to be limited over a course of this or over the course of your college term. Like it may be just be good for the 4 years that you're there, where potentially grants you can continually get. Also, I would say sometimes if you don't meet the requirement for a scholarship, so let's say I'm finishing my spring semester right now and I need a 3.0, and if I have less than a 3.0, I could potentially have to pay some money back. Whereas grants, once you have the money, pretty much you've got the money. So grants would be number one, free money, not many restrictions. Scholarships would be number two. Work study would be number three. I mean, you're getting money, but you have to work for it. If I can get free money, I'm always going to try to get free money over, money I have to work for. And then loans would be number four on the list. Although you don't really have to work for loans, you have to pay it back. And usually, if you're not paying it back very quickly, you're going to pay back
Yeah.
a lot more money. So that's how I.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So as students now are beginning to, enter their senior year of high school and think about, these different sources of financial aid, what steps would you recommend the students to take in the upcoming months, in order to maximize, their financial aid, you know,
So I
receiving
would
that?
say a lot of students will apply for financial aid during their senior year in college. Um, or I'm sorry, senior year in high school. Most students will apply for financial aid during their senior year in high school, whereas there's still money out there. So it could be the summer after you've graduated. Not many people are looking for things at that time. There's still money out there. I can't even explain to you the millions and millions and millions of dollars every single year that go unclaimed simply because students don't find it. But there's money out there.
Yeah.
So let's say you and me, for instance, apply for the same scholarship. We're the only two. We have a 50% chance of getting it. Let's say there's 10 people that apply. You've got a 10% chance of getting it. Let's say you're so diligent about it, you're the only one who finds it. You have a 100% chance of getting it because no one else
Yeah.
applied. So there's a lot more financial aid out there that students can get. So I would say never ever stop looking. I would have this conversation when I worked in college admissions with students who would be at times sitting outside the financial aid office or the bursar's office, the bursar's office being the office where you go pay your bill, where they can't pay their bill. And I asked them, when's the last time you looked for financial aid? And they're like, well, before I got here, when I was a senior in high school. And I'm like, there's still money out there. So even once you're a college student, there's still money that you can get. So I would say first off, never stop looking for financial aid. I would say secondly, the financial aid that you think that you have already, whether that be from the college or university you're attending or from some private institution or company, make sure that you don't have to do anything else to accept it. A lot of the time students will miss out on financial aid because they're missing deadlines or they're missing, certain things that they have to do to claim that money. One of the things that I would always tell students to do, high school students, especially when they are graduating from high school, change your email address through the whatever portal the college has. Because a lot of the times I would see students would apply to college using their high school email address. But that high school email address disappears after,
Yeah.
after potentially the day that you graduate or right after you graduate, where that school or university can continually try to communicate with you. But if that's the only way, then you don't get it. So I can't stress enough important it is. Communication's important. The school will always communicate with the student. You just have to make sure that you're making it easy for them, but also that you're responding. I can't say that this has changed with me now, but I've always been a procrastinator. So for me, I look at an email and I'm like, all right, I'll respond to it. Which I did that in college, and I remember almost missing out on some scholarships simply because I was like, I'll get to it. And I remember walking through the financial aid office one day, and the one of the ladies goes, "Hey, are you going to ever claim your scholarship? I keep sending you emails." And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, I was like, "Well, when do I have to claim it by?" She's like, "Friday." And I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday. So I was like, I'm gonna go online right now. So I remember just going into like one of the computer labs and claiming it. But they're always going to communicate with you. You just have to make sure that you're also communicating back because
Yeah.
the easiest way to get money is to get the money that you've already been awarded. So I would say definitely that, and then just making sure you know the conditions. So as soon as you start your first year in college, you're aware of what you need to do, what you need to potentially maintain to continually make sure that you get the money each year or each semester.
Okay. So you've mentioned the FAFSA a couple times already in some of your answers. Can you just help explain what the FAFSA is, its use, and why it's critical to fill it out?
Sure. So the FAFSA form, the free application for federal student aid, you can go onto the studentaid.gov website to fill this form out. This form, you're able to put in basically like a code that a school has, and then your household financial information. It takes the prior year tax information from your household and basically judges that when it comes to getting need-based aid. So I would say a lot of people will only fill out the FAFSA if they're looking to get need-based aid, but also universities will use it at times just to see if you want financial aid. So in order for you to be even considered, at times they want you to fill out the FAFSA form. So I would say that the form itself should be filled out by pretty much anyone going to school. And then the worst thing that can happen, you don't get any money. The best thing that can happen is you get some money. So I always say to fill it out, regardless of if you think you will need our need-based aid or not. But the FAFSA form you will fill out during your senior year in high school, and that will happen pretty much around the time you're applying to colleges. The FAFSA form will open up October 1st of your senior year. And at that time, between that time and then, usually schools have a recommended deadline as to when they suggest that you submit the FAFSA by. You want to make sure that you submit the FAFSA form during that time frame, because right after that, that recommended deadline that they give you is usually right around the time where the financial aid office or scholarship committees will get together and begin to decide who gets this money.
Okay.
Um, so it's important to make sure that you're kind of really sticking close and like looking at when what different schools have their recommended deadline to submit the FAFSA for.
So, you're talking about how it's primarily used for need-based aid, and let's just say this hypothetical situation arises where, you fill out the FAFSA one year, and during that year, your family's financial situation changes, right? How may that affect maybe some of the future aid that you may receive through the FAFSA form? Will it affect it at all? Like,
Sure. So yes, anytime it changes, whether your financial situation at home decreases or increases, that can affect, especially if you're getting, of course, need-based aid. So when your financial situation does change, one thing I forgot to mention, which is good that you asked this question, you have to fill out the FAFSA every year. Like you have to basically renew it. As a freshman in college, I didn't know that. My roommate told me that one day when we were walking back to our apartment. He was like, "Oh, I was just talking with the financial aid office and I just refilled out my FAFSA." And I was like, "Oh, I did that last year." And he's like, "Yeah, well, you have to do it every year." And I didn't know that. So to continually get any financial aid that you're potentially getting from the federal government, you have to refill out the FAFSA form each year. The time frame is a little bit different than it is when you're first filling it out as a senior in high school. But anytime your financial situation changes, you want to make sure that you go back into the FAFSA form and you update it. If you have any questions or issues or how that may affect what you're getting or not getting now, I would say the best place to go or ask is the financial aid office of the institution that you're going to be attending. Or if, let's say, it's over the summer before you start your first year, and you're potentially still deciding, call or email the financial aid offices and they can kind of tell you, walk you through some of the nuances of how it may affect or change things. But as soon as your financial situation changes, I mean, the FAFSA form itself is always open. Whether or not the school can recalculate or reevaluate you is a different story within the time frame that you may need potentially more money or something like that. But I would say definitely as soon as a financial situation would change, to ensure that you're logging into the FAFSA, your account, and changing anything that you would need to update your FAFSA.
okay. Can you explain a little bit more about how colleges and universities evaluate your FAFSA profile to determine, if you'll receive aid or not?
Yeah, so there's something called a student aid index. So when the college receives the FAFSA form, the college basically calculates, or basically they have like a student aid index, and they basically will subtract the student aid index or SAI, it's called, from the cost of attendance and basically determine, how much money that student would need to go to that specific institution. So, the amount of money that you may get may be different because the student aid index that the school is calculating will basically be subtracted from the cost of attendance. So, if you are going to a school where, tuition's 10,000 a year, 5,000 a semester. And your student, the amount that you're going to get going to be drastically different potentially if you're going to school where the tuition is going to be $50,000 a year. So, they're trying to look at your need, for instance, and then from there, how much of that need can we meet for the student? And also, what would be the expectation of the student or the family based on their financial situation? What would be the expectation realistically of the amount we think they can pay? So that's
Okay.
basically in a nutshell how, the process and kind of the logic behind how the FAFSA works.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about loans, because I know we did touch on that earlier. So through some of the research I did, I found that there's, sort of two main types of federal loans. There's subsidized and unsubsidized federal loans. Can you sort of just explain both of these, how they may differ, how they may compare, and what students should be looking for when, taking out loans?
Sure. So subsidized loans is one of the two types of loans that you may see on the FAFSA form, or not on the form, but the on your financial aid package. So when a student will apply for financial aid, or apply to the FAFSA and or other different areas to get financial aid, the school sends you what's called a financial aid summary or financial aid package. On there, you're going to see, this is usually going to be a little after you've been accepted to the school. On there, you're going to see a breakdown, the cost of attendance, and the types of financial aid you are eligible for. Two of the different types that you just spoke about, the loans, would be the unsubsidized and subsidized loans. But you'll see that basically on that financial aid summary, and also you'll see the overall amount. Subsidized loans, if you choose to take it, even though these are offered to the student, you don't have to choose to take it, and you can also decrease the amount of the loan. Subsidized loan is when you will take a loan out, and the interest of the loan is going to be paid by the government while you are in school. So for the duration of the time that you're in college, the government pays the interest of the loan. And subsidized loan doesn't, or I'm sorry, the subsidized loan is going to be a loan that you're going to get for, basically it's going to be need based, where the unsubsidized loan is not going to be need based. So the subsidized loan is need based, the unsubsidized loan is not need based. And the other difference between the two is that there's no interest that happens, so that like the government's not paying for the interest of the loan. So the interest basically starts immediately. So as soon as you basically sign on the dotted line and the government sends, and they send it to the school, the money that you need, however much that is that you've taken out. There is going to be a cap, but you can always again decrease. But there's not going to be, the government's not paying for it, so you
Yeah.
start that interest right away. So one of the things is I suggest students to do, although it's hard a lot of the times, to think long term, because I know for me it was hard and I didn't do it either, even though I'm going to give some advice and suggest this. But if you have like a part-time job or something like that while you're in college, pay that interest while you're in college, because it only begins to add up and add up and add up. long term. So subsidized. So if I was to rank those two also, I would say subsidized would definitely be the one that need-based, of course, if you are getting need-based aid, that would be the one that would be kind of at the top of my list because the interest is paid by someone else, being the government. Then unsubsidized would be the one where I would say, if you don't have to take an unsubsidized loan, if you've got enough other types of financial aid or you can just get by with the subsidized loan, I would say just do that because
Yeah.
you can avoid that interest at least.
Yeah. What I've been getting from your answers on loans is it's all about the interest, right?
100%.
Um, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's an important thing to keep in mind, especially for your future self, as you mentioned. Let's say like, students they don't really want to take out these loans. They're trying to get, the scholarships and the grants, right? The good the higher ranked ones
Uh-huh.
in your list, right? What are some of the good resources? Where can these students go to find these scholarships? I know for me, I applied to a couple different scholarships, some of which were local, within my own school district that they offered. There were others that were more centered towards my major, and people in my major could apply for it. What are some areas in which, students could find these scholarships?
I would say first start with your high school if you haven't already. Look at what scholarships they may offer. High schools have them, the school districts have them, potentially where you work may have them, potentially where your parents work may have them. There could be alumni groups or alumni in the area that have some type of chapter where they do different types of fundraisers for students. They could have them. Um, and then otherwise, I would say, just kind of going online and looking at different places where you can apply for scholarships through. So there are some websites that basically house a lot of scholarships. If you've taken the SAT, for instance, you're probably familiar with College Board because that's where you would go to uh, take or sign up for the take the SATs. But there's a scholarship search on College Board. There's a website, FastWeb, that can help. Scholarships.com is another one. Niche is another one. Those are all free. There are some that are paid. I remember one that was really popular, or that is really popular, is Scholly. I know there's a cost associated with Scholly, but Scholly is pretty cool because I like the show Shark Tank. And that one was funded on Shark Tank by the sharks because of the unique idea of putting all these scholarships specifically in one place for students to apply. But I can't stress enough, there's money out there for everything. I remember when I was in 11th grade, there was a my teacher who was a high school counselor also taught or was telling us about scholarships and how to apply and when to apply, and basically was saying it's never too early. He had a girl in his class, 2 years having us to having us in class, and this was an 11th grade class that we had to take. And it was called careers. It was taught on the basis of everyone in the class was either going into a career or into college after high school. And he told us a story on how this girl went online every single day for a year and a half straight and basically applied for scholarships and grants for about an hour a day. And when she started her first year in college, she had about $750,000 in financial aid. I was telling this story a couple of months ago now, a virtual presentation I was doing for College Knowledge, and the lady who actually invited me to speak to the audience that she was putting together was telling me how she actually had her son start in 8th grade looking at scholarships and basically like keeping a list as to when he could apply and those types of things. And even on our website, we have a scholarship tracker that you can download. So you can basically, if you start in 8th grade or earlier or later, for instance, you can kind of just keep track. So you put the scholarship name, the link, the criteria, how much, those types of things. But the longer that list is and the more that you apply, like I said earlier, if you're very diligent, you're going to find scholarships that no one else finds or applies to. And if you're the only person, there's no competition. You get it. I think that's something, a huge misconception like, oh my gosh, all these people are going to apply. First off, people are lazy and they don't find it. And second off, people are lazy and they see the requirements for what it takes and they don't want to submit it. So some of these scholarships, it can be just as simple as clicking yes, you want it, and maybe you fill out a short application. One, it could be doing an interview for the scholarship. One could be you need letters of reference. One could be you need to write an essay. It could be a combination of all of them. But all of those steps that you're going to take removes the different obstacles that you're going to have later on. Plus, I always tell students, unless it's an interview, the letters of reference or the essays that you write, just keep using them. Like this
Yeah.
scholarship place, scholarship A place isn't talking to scholarship B place saying, Braden used the same letter or reference, like we're not going to give it to him. Like, no, that doesn't happen. So there's a lot of different places out there, companies that you wouldn't even think um, offer scholarships. They do. I mean, there's so much money out there to be gotten. I remember doing a presentation during the pandemic. I was on Zoom with a colleague of mine, and she was talking about her like sophomore, junior year in college. She didn't have enough money, and she was really like, just out there just looking for scholarships, and she found one on KFC's website. And on KFC's website, one of the scholarships that they were offering is all you had to do is write an essay about their biscuits, and you would get entered into the pool of people that get the scholarship. So I can't even remember if she got the scholarship or not, but like that was one of them. Simply she
They're
wrote about
everywhere.
KFC's biscuits. So start early. I can't stress that enough, but there's so many areas that you can look at. And again, as you start looking, if you do start looking early, we have a tool on our website to help you out where you can keep track if you do start looking early.
Yeah, and I know even in addition to the tracker that we have on the website to help you stay organized, we a lot of the different websites that you mentioned, we also have a page dedicated to that, summarizing and detailing all the different websites with the links to access those pages. So that's a good area to check out if you're eager to check out some of those websites that Donovan mentioned.
Yeah.
One of our final questions here tonight. So you mentioned, one misconception in your past answer was how people just don't tend to realize, how sometimes these scholarships might not they're not applied too much. Um, are there one or two, what are like one or two of the biggest misconceptions that you see either current high school students have about financial aid in college or um, maybe freshmen, other college students have about financial aid? What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you tend to see?
I would say one would be that only straight A students get scholarships. I mean, someone offering a scholarship has basically said, I'm going to give money if a student meets X, Y, and Z criteria. So that could be having a lot of community service hours. That could be having leadership qualities in school, or having played a sport, or joining a specific club. So, if I wanted to, so my bachelor's degree is in criminal justice. So I could say, hey, I want to create a scholarship for any student who is looking to major in criminal justice, and then I can add whatever I want to that because it's my money that I'm giving. It could be they have to be from where I'm at right now in the state of Pennsylvania. It could be that they have to be also involved in the criminal justice club on campus. I mean, there's so many different things. So the misconception I often hear is, I don't have straight A's. I may be able to get the need-based scholarships, but I may not be able to get anything else. Having served on a scholarship committee and seeing some of the things that the people who have donated the money want the students to meet, some of it's crazy, but it's their money. They can do whatever they want with it. So I would say, that's a huge misconception, is only if I have really, really good grades, am I able to get scholarships. And I would say another one, almost that we were almost like what we were talking about earlier when it comes to reapplying for the FAFSA each year, reapplying for the scholarship each year.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have to reapply, then proving that you're meeting the criteria of the scholarship. So for instance, let's say you wanted to major in criminal justice and you got the scholarship that I was giving you, but now you want to major in computer science. You're no longer meeting so it's
Yeah.
not even grades almost. You're no longer meeting the scholarship criteria just because you change your major. Or if, let's say, it was that you had to be a criminal justice student and in a criminal justice club. You're no longer in the club. So, really looking at again those the criteria for what you need to maintain the scholarship. I would say those are two of the biggest ones I would say that I have come across mostly.
Okay, awesome. So, before we leave, do you have any final thoughts, tips, advice to share with anyone that may be watching?
So I do. I have one or two. I will go back I forgot as we were talking about loans. When it comes to federal loans that are provided by the federal government, the at times what will happen is, well, it's important with any type of financial aid to again know the criteria of the scholarship, the grant, the loan that you're getting, because most of the time you have to be a full-time student to maintain and get the financial aid. Whereas a lot of the times for the loans, if you're taking out a loan and you drop below half time, I would say most places it's about 12 credits, so about four classes that you have to take. Give yourself a little wiggle room. I never, ever, I've never suggested ever to a student just to take 12 classes or 12 credits, which would be four classes. Always take at least about 15. Simply because you want a little bit of wiggle room. Life happens. You miss something, you miss an exam, something, and then your grade drops. You may have to drop a class. So it may not, so much at the times could be out of your control. But as soon as you drop below full time to a half-time student, then a lot of your financial aid could disappear. So I can't stress enough before you're dropping any classes or changing classes, like I would even say too, I know some of the times what has happened with students is they will drop a class within, usually there's going to be a window when you're adding and dropping classes at the beginning of the semester. Usually you have a couple of weeks before a couple of weeks into the semester to do this, but be smart about what you're doing, because let's say you have 12 credits right now and you have to have 12 credits to get your loans or your scholarships. If you drop and go to 9, but then you add and go back up to 12, you've gone down below that full-time threshold. So add to go to 15 and then take away. I've seen so many students run into that where, especially when it comes to the federal government, like they're not as lenient as the school may be or something like that. So I would say that's something that I've noticed a lot over the years where, it's almost like the students, they get screwed without knowing it, because
Yeah.
it's just that they didn't sequentially do it right. So I would say no PEMDAS, know the order of operations, and make sure that you're doing things in the right order. And then tips wise, I would just say apply early. Begin to look at scholarships and never stop looking until you're about to graduate, because you never know what may help with scholarships and grants financially as you go through college. And I would say life happens. So right now you may feel really secure. We don't have to look for more. But first off, it never hurts to get more money to pay for school. Because once your school is paid for, then basically all that money you can just use. It gets basically like it's refunded to you to use for other things. It's basically goes back to your bank account. But never stop looking, and it's never too early to look. For instance, the person I was talking about before, where he started to apply in eighth grade, I don't think I've even said how much he got, but he got like 1.2 or 1.3 million dollars in financial aid simply because he started looking, and his mom had him start looking when he was in eighth
Yeah.
grade. So this kid is set. I mean, I'm sure he's got a nice apartment off campus. He's got all of his, the nicest laptop. He's not really worried about meals on campus. He can go out to eat anywhere he wants, and he probably has really good spring break trips. So, but I can't stress enough how important it is, to look beforehand. So I would say that would be my biggest tip overall, for financial aid.
Yeah, he might be able to walk away with 10 or so degrees. That's pretty amazing.
I mean, yeah. I
Um,
mean, if you're looking to double major, triple major, minor, go to grad school.
yeah.
Come on, like that's amazing. I only wish that I would have did that back then.
Yeah, and I like what you said there about, sometimes students can get comfortable just thinking, okay, they might have enough money to pay for their undergraduate, but they're not thinking of, getting their master's or getting their PhD. And, they can go through their undergraduate and then they can realize, oh, this is something I want to do. And then, they have to actually figure out how they're going to pay for that extra money. So, yeah, as you said, always be looking on the lookout for that extra money. Um,
Definitely.
and then that one point you made about, your financial aid package can be, lost or harmed if you drop below that full-time, student mark. I know here at Penn State, if, not only you'll lose your financial aid, you also won't be allowed to live on campus full-time in the dorms. So,
Yeah.
that's just a very important thing. And that maneuver you described here, um, that's some good wisdom. So.
There's a cheat code right there.
Yeah, I was like, that's gold right there. But yeah, thank you for joining me tonight, being willing to share a little bit about financial aid. It's a
Sure.
very tricky part of the process, and it's an unknown thing for a lot of people and a lot of younger people. So thank you for that. Thank you for everyone that tuned in.